All right, welcome back to Nostalgianomics. Today I have a special guest with KetchumAllCollectibles here with us, and we're just going to kind of do like a Q&A kind of back and forth. I know he has some questions for me, I have some questions for him, and we're just going to kind of do a nice live, or not live, but nice fun video, just all different areas of the Pokemon market and community, and touch on a lot of areas. So Dan, if you want to introduce yourself and kind of give a little background, and we'll get into it.
Yeah, I'm KetchumAllCollectibles. You can call me Dan. I've got my own YouTube channel, recently just hit a year. I do Pokemon full-time as a business. Anyone familiar with my content knows that it's not so YouTube friendly. It's more similar to what you're going to see today. It's very long form content, a lot of times, decent bit of ranting and rambling. But yeah, I've been back into the hobby collecting for like 8 years. And doing business in it full time for about 7 or 8 months now. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I'll have Dan's links in the description for his YouTube and his Instagram. He's also, I'm sure everyone watching this channel knows who he is, and he's also on Pokenomics Patreon, so you can catch him a lot of different places. But I wanted to have Dan on because I feel like a lot of people don't really know what it takes to run a Pokemon business, and so that's why I wanted to have you on and kind of, get your take on, just what it's like actually running a full-time Pokemon business in 2022. So, what did you do beforehand before you, kind of went full-time with this?
Yeah, so I'm 32, just turned 32. And my first 10 years out of college, so going like back to college, yeah. I didn't even realize Pokemon was still a thing. I graduated college in 2011. If you had told me that they were still making games, still making cards, that would have come as somewhat of a surprise to me. It was still 3 years later that I got back into it. But 2011, I graduated college. I worked 10 years as a chemical engineer. And then I left my engineering job. Yeah, okay. I left my engineering job because 7 years of doing that on the side, alongside my chemical engineering job, it became too much. And by the end of it, it got to where, with 2020, I made more in 2020 doing Pokemon part-time than I did doing chemical engineering full-time. And having two kids and 2 jobs, essentially, it was too much. So I had to pick one.
Okay. And then,
yeah.
So what was the transfer been like, going from having, a schedule to making your own schedule, going from having a paycheck to having to create, a paycheck or income each month? How's that been for you?
It's been amazing. I couldn't be happier. I'm very glad I took the plunge. Definitely it was mid-July. So probably mid-July, I've been starting to think about like the anniversary of it. I'll probably do some kind of long, really, really deep dive on my own channel into like just all my thoughts around it. But I guess the shortened version of that, really happy with it. The freedom is amazing, being able to set my own hours. Obviously, you can't get carried away with it, but you wake up some morning, I don't really feel it today. I want to go hang out with the kids and wife and go do something. She's a teacher, so she gets summers off. Last summer, it was really fresh. I had just quit my job, the pandemic and all that. So I didn't take advantage too much of that. I tried to really like grind and get going. Yeah. But this year, now that I'm a little more established, going to be into it for a year, the pandemic's kind of cooling off. I'm looking very much forward to this summer, like just being able to be a bit more free and not have to put in vacation requests and personal time requests and things like that.
Yeah, that sounds like, obviously I'm not full-time in Pokemon, but that's kind of like the same type of situation with me and my wife is, she's got the 9 to 5, keeps the benefits and insurance. And I've always had, different businesses I've owned, been self-employed my whole life. So I know exactly where you're coming from. It's you have that freedom, but at the same time, you need to get up and grind every day to make that paycheck. So
yeah, and having a spouse really is key. Having a spouse with health insurance, you can do it on your own without it, but that's just like an additional hurdle that makes it tough. Both all the red tape and bureaucracy of getting that is probably a pain. And then the cost of it too. I don't know exactly what it would cost, but
Yeah.
I've got it settled through the wife. So that works out really well.
So Dan, like, I mean, just for me, I've always wondered, I've always, back when, everything was kind of heating up back in 17, 18, kind of that first boom, that Pokemon Go Evolutions boom, I was wanting to, try to go full time and get a store. A lot of the stuff I had was rising like crazy. And I think everyone kind of gets those dreams at some point who's into this hobby. And so, I mean, my question to you is, do you think, I know you said you've been in for like 7 years and you were, doing this the whole time and building your inventory and your collection. I was wondering how much of that is your business today is basically just kind of carryover from all those gains we saw, and how much of it, is kind of done, still with the same strategies, flipping collections and grading cards and things like that. And if you think it's possible for someone to do that today without having kind of your collection, your inventory already saved up.
I think it's definitely possible, but that's with the not really the need, but you'd be benefited greatly if you could, alongside a stable income producing like job, do it on the side as I did for several years. I don't see a future where we go through such a massive boom as we did in 2020. Maybe it could happen. I mean, I would benefit greatly if it did. But so 7 years, the method that I always use, like in 2014, when I re-entered, it wasn't as an investor, it wasn't as a business, it wasn't anything like that. It was truly as a collector. I set aside $5,000 as like a value collector though. I always wanted to make my money go as far as I could. So what I did was I quickly found out that if I just buy the cards I want for $5,000, it's game over, it's done. Even back then, you could spend that in a month if you wanted to. So I thought, why not buy $5,000 worth of a big lot, big collection, grade some of it, flip what I don't want, and then buy more with the proceeds, and just always like maintain a net zero. So that initial $5,000 I put in, I never took any out and I never put any more in for like the first 6 years. I put in thousands of hours of time, basically. So if one were to take that approach starting today, I think you could do it over a multi-year thing. If you were to try and do it really, really quick, it would be a fair bit tougher. It's kind of like certain parts of it would be easier. I think the market is so much bigger now that almost makes it easier in a way. But the state of grading and the backlog and the high fees for grading, that makes it tougher. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. I don't know if it would necessarily be easier or tougher, but because back then you could buy a lot more, but there weren't as many buyers out there for it too. The prices, you were buying it for cheaper, but you were selling it for cheaper too. It's kind of an interesting thought. Yeah. Overall, though, it's probably harder today just because the prices are so much higher, but they're still, relatively speaking, you can still get similarly priced items. And where we are now today, it's a lot easier than it was 2 years ago or a year and a half ago at like the peak mania of the bubble and all that. So
obviously I don't want to get into incomes on this video, but I guess let's just say it like this. So, with your old job, right? Just answer this. Was it under 100 grand or over 100 grand job?
So I live in like the woods when you say New York, a lot of people think the city. I was a chemical engineer, a 10-year chemical engineer up deep in the woods in New York. So like, it's more like the Midwest. There's really lower cost of living to an extent. It's still New York, but I was under 100,000 before I left. But as I said, 2020 was so crazy. I was a full-time chemical engineer making under 100. I made more in Pokemon that year. A lot of it wasn't so much an income. A lot of it was like investment returns. Essentially, it was growth of my inventory, growth of my backlog, because as with PSA, but not quite as bad. I always joke about how I constantly have a backlog. I've got like 5 of these kicking around of cards I have to get listed still. But my backlog in 2020, when the prices, I mean, some things 2x, some things 20x, on average 5 to 10x, whatever it was, my entire inventory went from 6 figures to 7 figures.
Wow. Okay.
So that gave me like an incredible foundation to work from. It
Yeah.
wouldn't be a sustainable thing, but like say I quit my job and I were to just literally never buy, only sell down what I had, it would take me multiple years to sell down what I had, and it would fund my family's living expenses for like decades. Because my wife's job already almost entirely covers our living expenses. Clearly that wouldn't be sustainable. I wouldn't really be making money. I'd just be like offloading the appreciated assets. But I'm obviously like buying, selling, transacting, making money today, as well as processing some of my backlog and unleashing those like unrealized gains, realizing them. So it's like a two-pronged thing that I'm doing right now.
Yeah, and that's what I asked because I mean, I am in the Midwest. I'm in Missouri, and I've always made good money, and it just like it blows my mind. I mean, my friend that invested with me, who lives near me, you would talk about to this day. It's like if we would have just believed and went all in, like a lot of people like you did, I think I'd be in that position. I'd have that 7-figure collection. It's just like I was just I never had that mind frame. I was always just buying, a little bit or opening, having fun and, grading and then flipping them and being happy I made some profits. And it's like, I just think back to, when everything went crazy and, my collection went to 6 figures, I was thinking, oh man, if I would have done all this the way I should have, I'd be in the 7 figures too. And I'm just, the question I have for you is, making, obviously under 100,000 back then, I guess, where'd you find like the confidence to put, that large amount of money like into Pokemon, or was it all just off that original $5,000 and you built it up from that?
Oh, if I had really like, I've always been a saver. So I made less than 100,000. My wife made significantly less than 100,000. But our expenses, if you compare it to the median household in the US, if you compare it to most of my friends and family, we have very, very low expenses for a family of 4. And we've just always saved into like primarily traditional investments. One, we really accelerated our payments. Like I don't do 30-year mortgages. I don't do 2% down PMI and all that. I put 20% down on my house, paid off all our student loans, paid off all our cars. In 2020, part of the reason that I had the ability and I felt secure enough, like leaving my job, with the boom, I sold off a lot of stuff, like 6 figures, low 6 figures, but a significant amount, enough that I paid off our house 1 year into a 15-year mortgage. But yeah, literally everything I have today is $5,000 in 2014. Had I put in, I mean, if I, instead of putting 20% into my 401k and instead of putting 6,000 into an IRA every year, I could have put all that into Pokemon, and I could have put 10 grand in the first year and 20 grand in the next year. And I could have well into the 7 figures worth. But if you want to get really silly with it, I mean, I could have put, like, I bought Bitcoin. The first time I ever heard of Bitcoin, it was $8. I didn't buy it. It crashed to 2 in the coming months. And I'm like, good thing I didn't buy it. Had I bought it then, had I put $1,000 into Bitcoin, clearly I could have been a billionaire if I had really put my $5,000 into that. But you can't beat yourself up overthinking like that. As I mentioned, I entered into it completely as like a hobby, as a collector. In hindsight, sure, I wish I put more into it, but I'm really happy with where I'm at. 32, completely paid off house. I mean, as long as I don't do anything crazy or stupid, I should never have to go into debt again for anything. Buying cars with cash, things like that. Um, yeah,
No,
that's
that's incredible. I mean, it's kind of like a better version of my story, basically. That's kind of how I had that I had that ability to try the day trading, back when I was younger. Is me and my wife had paid off all our debts, and we had no debt to our name except our house, and her income paid all of our bills. So we were just like, well, hey, we don't have kids or anything. I was just like, hey, I want to try this. I think this can be a big thing if it works. And so I tried it, and it didn't work. And then obviously when the Pokemon everything blew up, it was able to. I'm one of the people that sold everything. I sold like 90% of everything I had, and I just paid everything off, and put a bunch of money into the market, and just kind of was like, okay, we're kind of financially set up. We still have to work, but we don't we don't have to worry about bills or anything anymore. So, but yeah, I mean, that's just incredible that you did that from that $5,000, just continuously working it. I guess that's what it was. I just never worked it hard enough. I mean, I was doing flips, and I was grading cards, and I was even doing box breaks and grading those cards and things, but I guess just I was never working it to the level that you or like someone like Jake or you guys were, is what it was.
and a lot of it is just like luck too. Like I wasn't a brilliant investor. Clearly, I didn't know the prices were going to do what they did. Otherwise, I would have been putting a lot more money in. I put the 5,000 in 2014. And then if I had to estimate between 2014 and 2020 on the side, like how many hours per week I put in, I probably put 1,000 hours a year in. I was probably doing like a part-time job, like 20 hours a week, 50 weeks a year.
Yeah.
So if you figure it that way, I put in $5,000 and 6,000 hours. How do you want to value that 6,000 hours? If I valued it as my chemical engineer pay, my salary, had Pokemon not boomed like it did in 2020, I made less doing that. I just got fairly fortunate in my timing. Had I done it in 2002 or 2003 to the 8-year period ending in 2010, something like that, it would have been fairly flat, and I wouldn't have seen the exorbitant returns I did. Definitely very fortunate with timing when I re-entered and where I'm at today.
Well, I think we all are, right?
Yeah.
Anyone who was in before this.
Yeah, definitely.
Just different levels and different variants. But I mean, I think anyone who was kind of in this before the Logan Paul thing happened, I think is all some sort of skill, some sort of luck, some sort of timing. It worked out how it did. And we think it's like crazy because Pokemon, but it's like it's the same way in everything. I mean, the right people in the right time in the NFTs and the crypto, and even like the crazy the Wall Street bets run on Wall Street with GameStop and AMC and all of those. So there's always going to be luck, right place, right times. When kind of the research, some skill meets luck and right timing, crazy things happen. So I mean, I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, and crypto, like I made a little bit in crypto. I mean, a decent bit, but not like I saw it at 8. I watched it drop to 2. I think I bought my first Bitcoin right around 200, and then I bought in a little bit as it went up to 1,000, 2,000, but like very, very small amounts. Had I put $5,000 in, I would have been doing great. I put more like 500. I think my first initial buy was like $50 worth at 200. So it wasn't even a full Bitcoin, but then I put in a handful of hundreds of dollars over the coming year or two. And so I made like 5 figures in crypto, but not 6 or 7.
Yeah, and
definitely.
And I don't know. Yeah, and I don't know how you grew up. I grew up like middle class, so I mean, obviously my parents had jobs and like paid for everything as a kid, but it's not like they gave me any real money other than like $10 to go out with my friends. So never really had money. So when I started to make money running my business, and then started to put money into Pokemon, it just started getting scary when like you started having like $20,000-$30,000 in like just cardboard, and you're thinking, oh man, how long is this going to last? Should I get out now? Should I sell some of this? I feel like this is getting too large. So I guess talk a little bit about how it sounds like you have a lot of that same story. You didn't come from money, or you're not rich. So how did you kind of get past that initial you're you're starting to have large amounts of money wrapped up in this kid's card game, back before it became what it is. And, how you decided to just keep going with it and keep amassing it instead of, sell it off then to pay for very real things in real life.
Yeah, I still think like prices have come down a ton on certain things since the 2020 peak. It still blows my mind what some of these things are worth. Every day, every week I'm shipping out. There's $100, there's $500, there's $5,000, different cards, different boxes, packs, whatever. It's a lot of money. Like I mentioned, outside of Pokemon, like this thing. What was this on Pokemon Center? $200? I don't spend $200 on anything. Like that is so much money. I spend in Pokemon so unlike myself in all other aspects of life. Like the most expensive shirts I wear are like I get like sports team shirts. I have Ranger shirts and Mets shirts and Jets shirts from like Christmas presents and stuff, but no labels, no big brands, no like we just very non-consumerish, fairly frugal, fairly minimalist, except for Pokemon. And I grew up in like I'd say middle class family, middle class household. My dad, he was self-employed most of my life growing up. Thankfully, just fortunate timing. I think he had a little bit of foresight, but he got a job as a mechanic at a college. I didn't go to that college, but they had a thing where they paid 50% tuition. If I had went to that college, they would have paid all my tuition to go there, but it wasn't an engineering school. So they paid 50% of my engineering school tuition. And then I had scholarships that amounted to like 30%, one big one, and then a couple other small ones. My parents probably pitched in $10,000 to $20,000 over the 4 years that I was attending college. And then I had saved up about that much in high school before I went. So I didn't graduate college debt free, but I graduated college with like very, very low 5-figure debt. I lived with my parents for 2 years. Year one, I tackled my student loans. And then year two, I saved up a down payment. And then after 2 years, I bought a house and moved in with my girlfriend at the time, current wife. So, but yeah, like selling $6,000 base unlimited Charizards was crazy in 2020. And I had like 5 of them. I sold, like, in my mind, that's $150 card in some aspects, because like in 2014, 2015, I remember buying them for like 100 to 150, selling them for 150 to 200, making like $20 on a flip. And then it turned into like making $200 on a flip. And now I've got some flips where I'm making 2,000, 5,000. It still blows my mind. So some mornings I wake up and I'm like, this is all real. This is all really happening. It's crazy.
I mean, you're doing it right though. I mean, you're doing it right. Like staying frugal, staying, never kind of letting it go to your head. I mean, that's really cool. I mean, the Charizard that's just kind of a sore subject for me. I've had just terrible stories. I mean, like back in 2016, the first card shop I started going back to like locally, they had two first edition base set Charizards back then, just right in their display. And I saved up and I bought one. It was $650. And I held on to it. And then I was like, oh, these prices are going up a little bit. So I sent it in and got it graded. It came back a PSA 7. And I flipped that thing so quick for like $1,600. And I thought, I'm like, oh my gosh, I just made $900. And it's just like stuff like, I have so many stories like that. And you're just like, God, so many things went through my hand, and.
Oh, I could make people cringe. If people aren't familiar with my background, I guess just to bring up some like cringeworthy things. I remember selling multiple PSA 9 base first edition Charizards at like $1,500, $1,000 to $1,500.
Nice.
I opened a box from every set. So when I got back in 2014, my goal was like, I didn't realize Pokemon was still a thing this whole time period I was out. So I got back in at Phantom Forces. I went back and I bought every box. I opened Skyridge. I opened EX Deoxys. I opened, like, at one point or another, I bought owned for a very short period, sealed, opened it like that night with my wife. But I opened every box. The only thing I'd never opened was base set first edition. I've opened some packs. I opened 2 heavy packs. One was unweighed and it ended up being a hollow down in Vegas last year. And then another one, I bought a heavy one years back for like $1,000. Got a
I mean,
nine tails out of that.
Do you regret opening it all?
I
I don't
mean,
think so.
no, like it was a great experience. I said I'm never gonna get a box of this. I gotta at least do 1 pack, get 1 hollow, take my shot. It was a nine tails that got an 8. and then the one I opened in Vegas was a magneton that got a 9. So that one's in my personal collection. But yeah, it's that thing again. Like you can look back and you can kick yourself over. Had I held that Deoxys box that I bought for 1,000, I could sell it for 50 today. But the thing is though, like I wasn't putting more money in. So had I bought that box for 1,000 and sat on it, I wouldn't have been able to sell the hits. And I probably lost money on that box. I probably turned 1,000 into like 700 or 500, whatever it was. But that was more money that I then went and bought more stuff to flip and turn around. And at the end of the day, like I got to where I am and I have no regrets through any of that. I could have done some things different and I could have a lot more money than I have now, but I'm in a decent spot. If you told my 20-year-old self, 21-year-old self, this is where you're going to be in 10 years, 10, 11 years, I'd be really happy.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'll let you, get on a subject you want to talk about. I just wanted to ask one more question. Like, so, right now today, what is it like that, the main source of your business is like right now? Like what are you doing on a day-to-day basis right now to produce income for the business?
Yeah, I guess there's 3 main aspects I guess I'll touch on if I split it up that way. One is like I'm still processing that backlog. I've got totes, I've got boxes, I've got monster boxes of untouched, like the biggest collection I ever bought still to date, I bought back in like 2018, I think. It was like $40,000. A guy drove a like not a minivan, a full-size Mercedes van from Canada to me in central New York. And it was like complete EX era, old school EX, PSA 9s, gold stars, PSA 9s, and raw. Tons of EX era packs, tons of diamond and pearl, heart gold, soul silver, platinum packs, mostly unweighed, tons of raw cards, tons of other various graded cards. And like I've still literally got totes of I went through and I got like the best stuff. The best stuff is all gone or accounted for, listed somewhere, but some part of what I'm doing. So that's like part 1 is literally still going into my backlog, catching up with all that. And there's like a significant amount there. There's 6 figures of value that I just need to like unearth and get it listed somewhere so that it can sell. Quickly before I go on to 2 and 3, that's one thing that I kind of kick myself about too, is like not quitting earlier, because during the 2020 boom, we had my second child in 2020. So we had a kid, we were having a second kid soon. I was a full-time chemical engineer. I had just bought a house. Super, super busy. I had 2 mortgages that I was paying at a time in early 2020 while we were renovating the house. So like I didn't have much time when the prices were going skyward to list and sell things. I probably only sold 10 to 20% of what I had. You mentioned you sold like 90%, right?
Yeah.
Like even if I was full-time then, I couldn't have feasibly sold 90% in a year unless I like completely just liquidated. But had I quit my job earlier, I might have been able to sell 40% or 50%. And I'd be like sitting a lot prettier too, because a lot of that stuff I'm still up on from what I bought it from 4 years ago, but I'm down. I mean, some stuff's down 80% from 2020, right? So had I had the time to get through it and sell it then, I could have extracted quite a bit more money out of it before it fell. But anyways, so 1 is like my backlog. 2 is I buy a lot of old collections still, some graded, some raw. PWCC, Heritage, Golden. I think they do a bad job of advertising a lot of lots. And I just kind of arbitrage that inefficiency. Like if someone sends a 103 card base set with mixed grades to Heritage, I bought like it was like $35,000 for 2 different base first edition graded sets. And I'm literally just buying them, splitting them up, selling them individually, and making a decent margin from that. Thousands of dollars, just selling them in a more efficient fashion. So that's another part of my business, buying collections, selling them, like older stuff. And then I have distributor access. So I'm actively participating in the modern market too, which in 2020, I'm sure you know, was a very profitable thing. Like I remember when Shining Fates came out, it was the first time I had ever gotten a pallet. I bought a pallet of Shining Fates from distribution, and instantly I spent like 10 or 11 grand, got a pallet. It was worth 20, 25, just an instant double up. Just list it all on eBay, send it to Troll and Toad, selling Shining Fates Elite Trainer boxes for 100. And I mean, now we're on 4th, 5th wave reprint, whatever they are. They're going for like 40 or 50 again, I think.
Yeah, those were kind of the times where that was when I started to sell everything I owned, is when literally I was buying like, say a Burning Shadows case online for $600. And then by the time it got to my door, like 5 days later, they were going for like $750. And so when I started to see that kind of ridiculousness, that's when I started saying, okay, this is not sustainable. It was like you could literally order things on eBay, and by the time they got to your door, you had made, 20, 30, 50%. And it's just like, when that stuff starts happening, it's, things are not going to come to an end pretty quickly.
It was really crazy. I had a note somewhere on my, oh, there it is. I was trying to find my note on all the Evolutions cases that I was buying, because I know you mentioned it in one of the videos that you were buying a bunch, and I was buying them too, both wholesale and on eBay. A large portion of my house was paid off just timing Evolutions very well. Like one thing that I always done years ago, I would always set back like 2 cases of every set. And for years, it was like I'd buy them at distribution, 80, 82.50. 82.50 was like a common number that I would get them for. I'm talking, I got back in at Phantom Forces. So Phantom Forces, Primal Clash, Roaring Skies, Ancient Origins.
So you set up
all the sets like
right away.
I set up distribution. Yeah. Like I remember the first purchase of Phantom Forces when I got back into the hobby. I think it was Poke Order, who I believe is still a website you can buy from. I bought a Evolutions booster case for like $650, which I thought was pretty cheap, pretty reasonable. And then I come to find like, I can just get I can do this as a business. Cause at that point I was thinking like flipping more as a collector, but like that must've been a few months in, because I bought a few lots on eBay, heard about PSA, graded a couple cards, and I'm like, okay, I think the best way to operate as a collector is to just be a business. And yeah, I was buying Phantom Forces was the first set that I was buying. And at that time too, it was crazy because Phantom Forces was the current set, but I guess it wasn't crazy then, it's crazy now. You could almost always historically buy 2 years back. So when Phantom Forces was current, I'm trying to think what the release date for that was, sometime in 2014, but 2 years back would have been into the black and white era. I remember some of my early orders from distribution because I wanted to open one of every set. I was able to get a lot of those through the distributor. I remember they had Heart Gold, Soul Silver. I don't know if you know of Cool Trainer Ryan, but he has the massive like basement full of so many of those products. I was buying just much smaller amounts and I was like arbitraging them then. I don't have them today. He has them all today. He was definitely a lot more patient long-term with them, and he did really, really well. I did well with them, but he did.
Wow. Did I lose you?
Amazingly. My distributor, I can call up my distributor today, and they're going to have Chilling Reign, Battle Styles. They're going to have sets for $85 that I can just buy on eBay for like $1 or $2 cheaper.
Yeah.
Anyways.
You know, that's all just so incredible that it used to be that way, you know. And you look back and, you know, back then it's just, you know, everything was just out there. No one wanted it. You know, it wasn't this massive like hype and you know, rush to the products and FOMO. Like people just hear these prices and they don't understand what it was like. It was just, you know, like speaking of the collections, you could literally just be on eBay any day you wanted when you had the money. And there were multiple collections ending that day where you could just bottom out, you know, and they were mixed with everything. They had, you know, all the first gen, they had legendary collection, Neos, and all mixed into one. And I mean, it was just the norm. And it was like, you didn't think that I need to go snatch all these up. You were just like, oh, well, when I have more money next month, I'll get more collections, you know?
Yeah. Currently, like I've been a year on YouTube and I have so many video ideas and I'm doing a lot of like in the here and now. But at some point, if I ever get a lull, like I need to find what content to make. I want to make a lot of like digging into the archive videos because I keep spreadsheets on everything. eBay and PayPal, you can go back quite a ways and get the spreadsheets anyways, but I want to go back and like revisit. I wish I had a large part of the reason that I created a YouTube. If 6-8 years ago I had a YouTube and if I could have had a video of every box that I opened, a video opening Skyridge, a video opening EX Deoxys, a video opening Call of Legends, all these sets that like, I was extremely fortunate in timing. I think the most expensive box I opened was Neo Destiny First Edition at like, it was either 2,300 or 3,200. Pretty big difference between those two numbers, but I can't remember which one it was. I think 3,200 because I want to say I bought Skyridge in the mid twos, somewhere in there. But a lot of those,
one of the only people on YouTube to have that. I mean, those videos. Like if you for every box, I know a lot of people have opened one or there, or you know, done an every pack opening, but I don't know if there's a channel out there that has an every box.
And I was doing it too. Like I didn't open all 36 packs. I was doing it in a way that allowed me to not lose so much money. So one thing I've touched on before, I've talked about it in a podcast or something probably. Weighing is a lot more mainstream now, and it's a lot more accepted and known. Back then, it was known, but it was only known by like a few. And I know like E4, they used to be really against it. My take was always, I'm going to do it. Other people are doing it and like being shady and not mentioning it, selling light packs as unweighed. I always light and big bold capital letters in the description. This is for sealed pack collectors. Ideally, if you open this, you will not get a holo. Like I always 100% transparency and all that, but I'm glad it became a lot more mainstream now because I think everyone knows about it. It was always going on, but some people just didn't realize it and they were buying light packs thinking they were unweighed. And
honestly,
yeah, like
you didn't lose tons of money. I mean, I remember doing the same thing. Like when I would open, you know, the fossil boxes and jungle boxes, we would open the heavy packs to sell the light ones, and I would always sell them as like an art trio of 3.
Yep.
And I mean, I don't feel like it was ever going for that much less than just a regular booster pack auction was going for. I mean, people would message you and ask you, just say, well, yeah, there's no holo. It's just for display purposes or collection purposes. You know, just 3 sealed packs. They're out of a sealed box. They're, you know, mint. They're mint. And I was really getting almost the same prices as others were getting.
The WotC sets were a different animal because a large portion of my box, like opening every box, a lot of them lost money. A lot of the mid and late era sets, like back during this time, legend cards weren't going for anything. Level X's, old school EXs, they were going for like very, very little in PSA 9 and 10. Fairly few people were even grading them, especially the EX era holos. So the way that I was funding a lot of that, like I bought an EX Deoxys box for probably about $1,000. I might have lost $400 on it because I didn't hit one of the gold stars. I might have hit an old school EX or 2. all the hollows I just put in my binder to start like a collection. They weren't even worth grading for $10. They weren't worth grading because PSA 10s were going for like, if you looked at them at auction, PSA 10s were probably going for 20, $30. PSA 9s like $5, $10 at times. Like it was really, but Fossil was crazy. I was buying Fossil jungle boxes for $300 to $600. I remember Lapras PSA 10 being like $700, being $1,000. It was hard to grade, so you hit it, likely it was going to get a 9, but I was getting at least 1 or 2 10s in every box that I opened. And a lot of the times I was paying for an entire box with 1 10. Those boxes were so plus expected value plus EV. It was insane. I know you mentioned you were doing it, I think, when they were a little more expensive towards 1,000. So like probably a year or two later than me.
Yeah, but it was all relative, right? Because the cards were just worth more.
Yeah. But I that's another thing I want to do too. Like I guesstimate that I opened a couple dozen Fossil and Jungle, and then like base I probably opened 6 to 10 or something. Because I remember the first Charizard I pulled, decent bit of silvering on it, hit a 10, sold it for like $300. So a PSA 10 base unlimited Charizard that's now what, like $10,000. It peaked, I don't even remember what it peaked at because I didn't have any. Peaked at like 25 or 30 or something crazy. I sold my first couple of those at like 300, but it was great because I paid 600 or 700 for the box, and I was halfway back to break even. Crazy.
Well, hey, you have anything you wanted to talk about? Any topics?
Yeah, I guess going back for you, you mentioned one thing that really intrigued me, your story, because I do business with them to some extent through that, like Evo, Troll and Toad. You had the story like when you sold your stuff. It was a really interesting story. And I do a lot of business with them. I've like Google mapped them just to see how far they are from me. I actually checked out the warehouse before because one of my distributors is in the same warehouse as Troll and Toad. So there's a main Pokemon distributor literally in the same building.
Okay.
So I buy some of my product and they bring it over on a fork truck or a pallet jack over to my Evo store. But yeah, you mentioned that you actually went there and just, I'd like to hear more about that. Like that was peak 2020. You
Yeah.
reached out to them. Was that solely through their buy list, or was that like you picked up the phone, talked to one of their buyers?
No. So my card shop that I have locally, I was up there. This was like end of 2020. And so I was just mentioning to them, hey, me and a buddy of mine are trying to, sell a good amount of our vintage sealed product. Do you guys know like anyone who's looking for that? And, do you know any good, reputable people that have that kind of money to buy? And that's when one of the guys there, he's in the competitive scene, and he's got, kind of friends in a bunch of different areas. And he actually knew, I don't know how high up the guy was, but he had to be at some level, he was like a director of something there. I forget exactly what, but got in contact with him, talked to him on the phone. I basically was, messaging him back and forth, emailing him pictures of items, what I got. We were, going back and forth on prices of things. We finally, came to, deals on a lot of things. And I took a little less than like eBay prices, but at the same time, this is kind of before the absolute top. So, like my base set box, I took 25,000 for it. So I know they got up to like in the 30s after I sold. So I felt bad for a while. Trust me. I was like, oh, I missed it. I thought this was it,
Feeling
but
good
these
now.
are boxes I spent $1,000 and $2,000 for. So like, my first edition Jungle, my Fossil, my base set, all those old boxes, we came to all these deals, and they were all $2,000, $3,000, some $4,000 under eBay prices. And but I was fine with it. And so we came to all these deals. My friend worked deals on his, and we literally just rented a car and took a trip down there, stayed at a hotel, and we're just having all those conversations in the hotel, like, man, what if we get there and I have a rip in that one, and what if what if one of them isn't real? There's scams going on. What if one of ours is one of the fake ones, and there goes $30,000 and all these things. And so then we finally get to sleep. And literally we're on the ride there. And, we have all these boxes in the car, just hundreds of thousands, right? And my friend literally goes, what if we just pull up and it's just like some back alley deal and there's a bunch of crackheads standing out front? I'm like, dude, just chill out. This is one of the biggest sellers on, in all of Pokemon, all of TCGs in general. Like, we're fine. We literally pull up and it is just an unmarked big warehouse. There's literally a bunch of people just kind of dressed in like scraggly clothes, walking around out front, smoking cigarettes. And we're looking at each other like, this is the right place, right? I'm looking at the GPS, like, this is the right place. And we're just like, I'm not going in there with all this stuff. And so he ends up staying in the car. I walk in and I'm just looking around at all these people like, oh man, I hope I don't get jumped right now. And I walk in and the first thing I see is like these carts of like pork rinds. Okay. Like, there's like a distribution of like pork rinds and bagged, chips or stuff. And then, I see some type of warehouse, activity going on in front of me. And then to the right, it's like this office setup. And this girl walks out to me. He's like, can I help you? I'm just like, I'm looking for Troll and Toad. And she's like, oh yeah, we're Troll and Toad. What can I do for you? I'm just like, oh, I'm here to meet with, I gave him the name. And she goes, oh yeah, he's expecting you. Did you have everything with you? I'm just like, yeah, it's my car. I'm like, I just want to make sure it was safe and everything to bring it in. She's like, oh yeah, we're 100% safe. We got a room back here ready for you, and go get it, and they'll meet you in the room. I'm like, okay. And then so we went to the car and carried in the duffel bags full of these boxes, and then we get into the room and we're in there just waiting, and the two guys come in, and it was just like the most I guess nonchalant check I've ever seen. They just kind of went to each box, picked it up, looked for literally like a second or two per box. I mean, I would have wanted to do more, looking over it before I spent that kind of money on these things. But real quick checked them and, said, yep, everything looks fine. Walked back out, said, we're going to go wire the money. Walked out, wired the money, came back in and said, you can check your bank accounts. And we both looked. All the money was in our accounts. So I just said bye to the boxes and left. It was just such a weird experience. It was nothing like I thought it was going to be. I was expecting, some big corporate office, like a real in-depth like check to make sure they were all real and authentic. And, it was literally like two people my age come in, look the boxes over for a good 30 seconds and then wired us, ridiculous amounts of money.
Did they bring in like a reference box even, or
nothing?
No.
I mean, it's the craziest thing. Honestly, like talking about it, it doesn't even seem like a real story. It's I get like we were talking, we're going to have that story for the rest of our lives. I mean, it was literally like, I mean, almost like a drug deal, but completely legitimate with Pokemon products. It was strange.
Yeah. So when everything in the duffel bags, everything in that deal, that was all vintage, or were there like Evo cases in there too, or anything like that?
No, I sold all that type of stuff through my eBay. It was just all the high-end items I didn't want to ship. So like anything like 15K and up, any of those boxes.
Scary. Like today, I sell a lot on eBay. I sold a lot of north of $10,000 stuff, but it's not like a daily thing. It's still a bit nerve-wracking. Like I send it out insured, signature, all that. Even when I send out a graded card that I graded myself, that I know is 100% authentic, it's like, what if the buyer tries to play games? Boxes are scary. Like even when I was buying boxes for $300 to $500 a piece, I always had to open them. Like I never could bring myself to putting any back, because as I mentioned, I opened dozens each of Jungle and Fossil. You opened not that many, right? But like multiple, multiple though, right? But you put like, you opened multiple and then you put multiple back. Like with how many I opened, that's another thing that I kind of kick myself. Like I literally didn't have one WotC box. I'm trying to think the longest I've owned a sealed WotC box. I just bought 3 through Heritage. I just spent Jungle first edition, Rocket first edition, and Japanese Fossil. I spent like 32 grand. They're all opened already because I have to open them. I have to verify them. When it was 10,000, when it's 10,000 now, when it was 500, I'm pretty comfortable with like uh authenticating them, I guess. Personally, like, I'm pretty comfortable that if I saw one that was off, I could tell. But there's always that like 1% in me that's just like, I know I'm going to open this, so I might as well just do it now.
Yeah, I mean, it was always just like, I never had that like desire to open them all. And again, it wasn't even like, I just feel like today everything is so about investments and returns, and it's like a lot of those boxes I'd plan to never sell. I mean, I didn't even consider selling until I started getting into like the multiple five figures, and I was just like, okay, like I mentioned in other videos, it just became, just where we are in life, being middle class, not like rich. It just, the money became so significant that it was just going to, change our entire life basically, that it was just worth more than having, sitting in a safe in my closet. But yeah, I mean, when I was buying them for $1,000 and $1,500 and $2,000 and putting them in my safe, it was just, I wanted to have those for life. Like, I had other things that I was flipping and other things that I had listed on eBay and I was ready to sell. And, whether it be PSA cards or, packs or other items, theme decks, whatever it was back then. I was ready to sell all those, kind of at a blink of an eye. But all those boxes, they were never for sale. I never had them listed. I planned on keeping them until I was, retired basically. And so, yeah, it was a lot different. I never had the plan to open them, but I never had the plan to sell. It got to that point where it just got too ridiculous. And again, I tell this in my videos about trying to catch the bottoms and tops. I didn't hit the top. I mean, the top was later. I mean, I think base set went to like 35,000 at the top, maybe at least the low 30s. Jungle and Fossil were well in the 20s. I mean, the first edition. I mean, Rocket was everything kind of hit the 20s and 30,000s in those older sets. So it's like I didn't even hit the top, and I got out and made tons of money. So I think everyone nowadays is so worried on getting that maximum ROI, that absolute bottom price, selling at the absolute top. And as I mean, you've bought and sold consistently this whole time, and it's just not necessary to do very well.
Yeah. I've never, similar to you, I found myself selling a lot of things that I didn't even have listed in 2020 during that mania. I didn't know if it was necessarily the top, but early 2020, I think Charizard base unlimited 9, it was still an expensive card. I want to say it was around $1,000. It's gotten back almost to where it was early 2020, late 2019, but I think it's picked up a little bit off of its bottom.
It was exactly there because I worked a deal for a friend of mine at my local card shop because they had one, and we finally got down to like $1,200. And then literally like, I mean, it had to be like a few months later, and it was going for like 3,000 or 4,000. And it was just, so I had to walk back to the car shop, and there's like, "But you're feeling pretty good right now." I'm just like, it wasn't even mine. I bought it for a friend, but I'm sure he is.
Yeah, I forget how many I had, but I had a handful of them. As I meant, like that card is like prime liquidity. Like Pokemon cards are very liquid compared to traditional investments and things like that. But that card is nearly as liquid as it gets. So it's just a card that I like to buy them at auction and sell them at buy it nows and just arbitrage and make it. It was always easy to make a margin because like the 8-year period that I was doing that with that card, I don't know which way I'm going here. It started at 150 and it went to like 1,000. And I just like arbitrage the whole way up. I had like 6 of them or 7 of them or something in early 2020. When they hit 2, I sold 1 or 2. When they hit 3, I sold 1 or 2. When they hit 4 or 5, I think the highest I sold one was somewhere between 5 and 6. Evolutions cases were very similar. I bought dozens of Evolutions cases. My distributor had like a limit, and they were slowly bumping up their prices throughout 2020. I took down notes on a sheet here, but I know I bought more on eBay besides. But at least like 20 to 30 cases over like a 3-month span, 4-month span between May. And then I've got a note here, September 16th, 2020, my distributor told me there were none left. And between then and like a few months later, they just had that exponential growth. And I sold a lot of them early, but I like doubled up my money in a month and then it like doubled again. So I sold 3 or 4 more cases and 3 or 4 more cases. It was just obscene. I was wrong in a lot of ways on evolutions, but I made like that paid off a decent portion of my house in 2020. Crazy.
Honestly, I'm one of those few people out there that I can legitimately say that was one thing. There it is.
I
That was
made sure I
one
kept
product.
one. I'll probably never get rid. I think I have 2. I think I have this one listed, but then I have 1 more. I'll always keep one just to remember.
You have to. Yeah, I just think I was the only people that I believed in evolutions from day one. I always loved the set. I mean, I just knew that anything with that Charizard artwork. I mean, and just the time it came out. I mean, it was kind of like the real anniversary set. Generations was. I mean, it's does real well and was loved now, but Generations was not liked back then. I'm sure you remember. I mean, it was kind of not liked as much as Evolutions became to be once it was just so overprinted. But yeah, I stayed the course with Evolutions, and I know Poke Knowledge when I was on history, he was shocked that I had just 10 cases put away, and you had a lot more than me. So yeah, I mean, I think there were people like us out there who believed in the set, and I think that's they did really well. But yeah, I mean, I actually like to ask you that question is, what do you think about kind of like the new sets? I mean, I really enjoyed XY because it kind of like each set had its identity. I liked it. Most all the sets were like the original 150. So you had the Breakpoint with Gyarados, the Breakthrough with Mewtwo, the Fates Cloud with Alakazam, the Flash Fire with Charizard. And then, when Sun and Moon came, it started to get, a lot more spread out. And now in Sword and Shield, I mean, I know we had Evolving Skies, but other than that set, I mean, I know the Voltage is kind of based around Pikachu, but it just seems like these sets are just kind of all over the place. The hits are everywhere. There's no like Pokemon or group of Pokemon they're really focused around, other than Evolving Skies, really. And I was just wondering, what do you think of that? Do you think that's kind of a good thing to broaden the sets, or do you think it's, what do you think?
I think Pokemon is doing really well in modern, but if I had to like state a few gripes that I have with it, the sets are massive, like too big in my opinion. I've never been a big fan of rainbow rares, but I really like what they're doing with like alternate arts. I really like what they're doing with like some of these specialty sets, like the ultra premium collection. That was a really fun set. I like Celebrations a lot, kind of pulling an artwork from every year in the history and just the small packs that give you pretty decent hits. Hidden Fates killed it. I really liked Hidden Fates a lot, but the XY era in particular, kind of a weird thing to say. Some people don't fully get it, I don't think, but others do. Bit of nostalgia for the XY era because that's when I got back into it. It's like I rediscovered Pokemon, and it's like Pokemon XY, the games. I didn't know these were things. I bought them. I haven't played through a game completely since Sapphire, way back in the day. Like any of these modern games from 2014 and now, I haven't completely played through a game that I can remember. But yeah, learning all those new Pokemon, catching up with all the stuff that I did, buying that first case of Phantom Forces, like all that happened during the XY era. And I can still think like that Silver Dialga that came from Phantom Forces. And I know so much more about XY sets than I do about Sun and Moon and Sword and Shield even. Because I was, at that point, I was doing not mass box openings, but like more so than I am today. I actually used to sell, right now, if you look at my eBay, 1,000 listings, they're like 95% single graded slabs. I used to sell play sets of trainers. I used to sell single cards all the way down to like more like old school Pokemon. My podcast partner, co-host, I used to sell like that through a lot of that era. So I know a little bit of like, not the actual like complete meta, but I know a little bit of the playable trainers. And I remember the whole Roaring Skies thing where that went to the moon, and I was buying collection boxes. Any collection box that had Roaring Skies, I would buy and break down, sell 36 packs, lots of Roaring Skies for like $300 on eBay. And then the whole reprint thing, Roaring Skies, Primal Clash, So lot of nostalgia for that era, honestly.
Yeah, I guess we'd have to talk to someone who got in during Sun and Moon and see how they feel about that. Because, like you said, it's like, yeah, Hidden Fates was an amazing time, and trying to pull that Burning Shadows Charizard and those types of. And I mean, I'm a huge Shining Legends fan. I don't know about you.
I like Shining Legends, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I love Shining Legends. I went real heavy in that back in the day. But yeah, I mean, I just had that so much more nostalgia for that XY era. So I don't know if it's because we came in during that time or what it is. I don't know if people now are going to have that same feeling for Sun and Moon, Sword and Shield. I just don't have it. I think maybe it's because of the giant sets. Maybe it's because you can't pull. Yeah, I mean, it's almost impossible to pull a full set yourself. Um,
That's a huge thing for me because like I don't do reverse hollows personally, but I remember opening that first case of Phantom Forces, and I want to say I got like almost everything. Maybe I was missing one or two cards of like the regular. If you go into the reverse hollows, I was probably missing a little bit more, but maybe not even, because 6 boxes, that's 216 packs. There was only 119. The set went to 119, and then I believe the Dialga was 121 out of 119. Those numbers were just so much more reasonable and manageable than now you got to open like 100 boxes, and then you're still missing a couple cards. It's just crazy.
Yeah, and I know Jake made that point when I was on his live stream, and I do like his point of they did need to give collectors kind of that next level hit, because kind of like evolutions, like there is no real giant hit. I mean, the Charizard became the big hit because of the grade, but it was never a hard card to pull. So I understand Pokemon having to make harder hits in the sets, but yeah, I mean, like you said, I don't think Rainbow Rares was the answer. I mean, it's kind of like, I mean, and just for personal, I mean, I like the full arts most of the time better than the rainbows. Like the full art trainers are a lot nicer looking than the rainbow trainers.
Yeah, I agree there. I'm not a fan of the rainbow rares at all.
Yeah, and so I think they've kind of started to hit their stride with the alt art type thing. I mean, I think the alternate arts are going to be, I think they're going to do a lot better in the future than the rainbows are. But at the same time, it's like when you're making the sets that big and then making that many like alt art or rainbow hits, it gets to the point where it's overwhelming. Like I understand having to put some of those like god tier rarities in the sets, but when it's that many, it's just like if you could have went back and had like an XY style set with maybe a few god tier hits that you might get one a case, I could understand that a little more, I think.
Yeah, and I guess part of I almost feel like distanced a bit more from Sun and Moon and Sword and Shield, because back during X and Y, I was buying and opening at least a case of every new set, and then it went down to like a box or two. I think the last set I opened like 200 packs of Celebrations. I pulled the whole set. I pulled all 50 cards, which was a great feeling.
Just 200 packs, huh?
Yeah, I had pretty good hit rate there. I think maybe I did 200 on recording, and then maybe 200 or 250. I got them all though. I did pretty well. Aside from Celebrations, which was like a mini set, holiday set, whatever, or anniversary set, I'm trying to think of the last like main. I didn't open Battle Styles, Chilling Reign, Fusion Strike, none of these. Evolving Skies, I think I did one box. That was probably the last one that I did even like one box. But I was doing two of every for a while. And sometime in Sun and Moon, I dropped off doing that because like my backlog was too crazy. Probably during the 2020 boom, I had to prioritize like listing things as opposed to opening new stuff. And
Yeah.
so I felt a little bit like more detached from it because I'm not experiencing it as much as a collector. At some point in the hopefully not too distant future, I hope to get caught up and completely process my backlog and kind of get back into opening and enjoying some more of the sets. But I've still got a little ways to go.
Yeah, sounds like it. So, I mean,
Yeah.
Do you ever like to give advice to people out there, like who are, getting in the hobby? I mean, I've been asked about it multiple times about like who I'm trying to reach with my channel. And, because I think a lot of, especially Pokemon knowledge kind of, touched on it, is a lot of my titles have Pokemon investing in them, and, just kind of who's that's geared to. And, my channel, I've been completely kind of clear with. It's geared toward, any newer collector, any, collector who's been in the hobby for a good amount of time. It doesn't have those, massive amounts of money to spend, so they can't go buy out, $5,000-$10,000 lots and flip them and make a few thousand. Maybe they have an extra couple hundred, $300, $400, $500 a month, maybe, and maybe not every month. Maybe they can put a couple, $2,000-$3,000 a year into Pokemon, and they're just trying to, and maybe they don't have a lot of time, so they're just trying to find things that can grow over time or do well, and they can still enjoy having them, things like that. So I was just wondering if you had any advice to people either new to the hobby, just coming in, don't have tons to spend, trying to look for good things to kind of hold on to that can maybe be safer in the future than others. Like what do you tell people in that kind of that spot?
The main goal, I guess, like the selfish goal for my channel, which I did mention earlier, is just to like document my own personal journey. I kick myself for not recording that massive Canadian Mercedes van collection that I bought and that Skyridge box that I opened and all that stuff. So part of it, honestly, is selfish. Like I want to document what I'm doing. Maybe I'll never look back at it, but if I want to. The other side of it is like, I think, I know I really tend to go on and my videos are very long form, not super optimal in any way for like the YouTube algorithm and all that. But I think that businesses, collectors, I don't like to use the word, but a lot of people use the word investors. I think a lot of different types of people could benefit, hopefully, from my content. I try to talk about what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. I don't say, buy these 5 cards. I show you the 5 cards I bought or the 5 collections I bought and kind of tell you why. That's like, I try to just walk you through what I'm doing as a business, why I'm doing it. It might be wrong, it might not pan out, but these are the reasons why I think it's worthwhile. And honestly, like if I had to just distill it down, whether you're a business, whether you're a collector, one thing that I've like frequently found myself doing, buying auctions, whenever you sell as buy it now. So like it's a very simple thing, it's a very basic thing, but there's always deals out there to be had. There's always deals. You can spend yourself completely broke if you buy every decent deal. Look for the great deals. Look for for me, it's easier because I'm a business and I buy literally everything. If you're a collector and there's only one card that you want or one set that you want to collect, you can't really, like your card might only come up a few times a year. And so you can't, like, I'll buy anything. I'll buy anything Pokemon as long as it's at a good enough discount to market that I can make a margin on it. So like I can bid 50% of what I think market might be on 1,000 things and win like 50 of them. And then that's my inventory. I'll sell those. Not everyone has the ability to do that, but still like a lot of the pops of these cards are going up much higher if you're dealing in graded. If you're dealing in like modern, if you're just a modern collector, and you've mentioned this a lot too, don't fall into the trap of $200 Vivid Voltage. Don't fall into the trap of in print, brand new release. I forget if we were recording or pre-record. Don't fall into the trap of $100 Shining Fates Elite Trainer boxes. The hype, the FOMO, right when a set comes out, a lot of times 6 months later, when the new set's coming out, things are cooling off, wave 2, wave 3, reprint, whatever. When those things come out, that's the time that you can generally buy historically cheaper. And another thing that I say too, and it's hard for certain people, it's harder for some people more than others probably, I'm perfectly fine skipping certain things. Like if I miss the boat, I miss the boat. There are so many cards in this hobby that like need is a dangerous word. If you need something, you're likely to overpay for it. And whether you're investing, you might not see the returns. If you're collecting, you're not going to have the money to buy as much if you like bought optimally. So like occasionally I just skip out on things. If I miss the boat, I miss the boat. I look for the next boat. There's 4 main sets coming out every year. Yeah. And there's like a mini set or 2, all these Japanese beautiful promos, all that. on top of a 25-year history of literally tens of thousands of different artworks and promos and variants and language. There's so much that you can do in this hobby. Don't get yourself overly down if something like escapes you. There's so many amazingly beautiful cards for under $10 raw. It's mind-blowing how like massive the hobby is.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of how massive the hobby is, how many, you know, people are involved, you know, it's kind of one of the questions I asked, you know, Pokemon Knowledge is, you know, I wanted to ask you the same thing is, you know, how'd you, you know, meet everyone that you know in the hobby? You know, like how'd you build those relationships? And I mean, I know you haven't been on YouTube super long. So were you going to like a lot of the events? Were you just reaching out to them? Did you do a lot of purchases with people? Or, you know, 'cause I know I've, you know, been on a lot of people's channels and, you know, you've been to events and, you know, you hang out with a lot of the people in the Pokemon community. And, you know, like I told him, it's just looking at it from the outside in, it just looks like this super exclusive like club, you know, and it's just like, you know, there's a big group of people that are involved, but it's just like, man, it seems like super exclusive. They all kind of go on each other's channels. They all kind of hang out with each other at the events. And I was just wondering, you know, kind of how that all happened.
Yeah, I think it probably could look outside looking in, it could look intimidating, or it could look like there's some circle of people that everyone I've met is super welcoming and open. And it's like the greatest part of the hobby is experiencing it and sharing it with others who are passionate for it. So going back to when I got into it, 2014, I think I didn't register on E4 until 2015. But if anyone is familiar with me, they're probably familiar with my existence on that forum. It's funny now that I'm full-time Pokemon, I don't have as much time as when I used to be like going on lunch break or breaks at work. But
yeah, it used to be fun when I used to be able to be on there.
Yeah, I have over 5,000 posts on there. Like there's a ton of information. There's a ton of, but I established some relationships through there. I have an eBay where I've sold over 10,000 transactions. I think I have over 10,000 feedback. So I've probably sold 30,000 transactions. So
Oh yeah.
I've sold to people on eBay for 8 years. I've been on E4 for 7. The first event I ever went to was, I'm trying to remember if the collector's event at Hartford, that was after Worlds 2018. So Worlds 2018 was the first event I ever went to. And it was a little like intimidating. It was, I knew all these people online only. I actually had a son who was like, how old was he at the time? A month or two. I was passionate in the hobby and I really wanted to meet people, and my wife allowed me to go. I went down 24 hours. I didn't even get a hotel. I'm like, I'm just going to go down, fly out red eye the next morning, hang out with people the whole time, meet as many people as I can. Like Gem Mint Pokemon, old school Pokemon. I had talked with those guys. I had done business. I had bought from them, sold to them. So meeting those people, I mean, I met SM Pratt. I met a lot of the big E4 names, some of the YouTube names. I wasn't even big into YouTube at that time, but so 18 Worlds was a big one. And then I think it was that spring I went to the Hartford Collectors event that was tied in with Hartford Regionals. Yeah, because I took my son to that and he was older. So that was between 18 Worlds and then 19 Worlds. I went to DC. Unfortunately, that was the last Worlds that we've had. But each one of those events, I was talking to people on the forum, finding out what hotel they were staying at, trying to stay close to people, meeting as many people as I could. Worlds is nice because like there's no vending at all. So like literally the whole thing is just going and hanging out, meeting people. I mean, if you're there as a player to play, you can watch people play. But I did go to Orlando Collecticon a couple of months ago, which was a lot of fun. And I'm going to start going to a few events a year, but don't be intimidated. Like, I mean, the reason I'm on this channel right now, right, is because you emailed me about a month ago now, right? I mean, you went for it. You shot your shot, and I love engaging with new people, just meeting new people in the hobby. Again, shared passion, all that. Nick was the one who approached me about a podcast, and that was like the genesis of my YouTube. So E4 was the first one, going to events, getting into Discords a little bit. But YouTube was like the biggest, most recent one that really propelled me to the next level, meeting and interacting and collaborating with other creators on YouTube. And it's just all great. I love this. Like, this is my favorite content to make
Yeah.
and to consume while I'm packing orders, while I'm listing things on eBay. I'll throw up whoever was talking the other night live, whoever put out an hour-long video talking about Pokemon. I just love it.
Well, and then, I'm sure most people that watch my channel probably, know you and watch yours too. But if they don't, you want to give your and Jake's Patreon a little sales pitch too? Just let them know.
So like,
I guess let me know too, because I haven't joined. I'm really considering joining though. Just like what's an average like, night like when you're live, and what kind of conversations are you going over and things like that?
yeah. So the Patreon, the main thing we focus that around, well, I guess the two main things are, we do a monthly Zoom chat, and like anyone who follows Jake or anyone who like watched your live with Jake, it's great because you get, like, even right now we have two people talking back and forth. The Zooms are nice because we're not live right now, so there's no chat going on, but it's like the next level. It's not an in-person event. You're not all in the same room talking, but I guess it's the step before that. So instead of two people being live, interacting with a chat that's scrolling, hitting most questions, whatever, we do the Zoom thing once a month for 3 hours. We get like 30 or 40 people in a room, in a Zoom room. And instead of asking in a scrolling chat that the person might not ask your question, you can pop up your face cam just like this, and you can ask, and just a great conversation. Jake and I kind of every month we bring like a different bit of data. Last month we actually had Pat Flynn do a presentation, Deep Pocket Monster. So about an hour of it, we do like some kind of a analytical presentation, or our guest does a presentation, and then we just go into open Q&A, back and forth conversations around anything, the current market, whatever we want to talk about. And then another big aspect that's pretty active, and up until I joined Jake's Patreon last fall, I was in Discords, but I was never super active. But I run the Discord now with Jake for Pokenomics, and a couple hundred people in there. It's a pretty good crew of people. We've got voice chats in there, just open rooms that people can hop in. A lot of people utilize that. Like, sometimes I'm in there, sometimes Jake in there. A lot of times it's just other people, other patrons going in there to talk about. I mean, it's not even always about Pokemon. Sometimes people are talking about other collectibles they do, coins, whatever, talking about sports, talking about whatever they want to. So the Discord community is really great too. A lot of other people, again, passionate about the hobby, but then it branches into anything else. You can talk about whatever.
That's awesome.
And that's $10 a month. I know myself with YouTube, like, I do this full time, and a large portion of the time that I'm doing this, I have YouTube just on in the background to listen to. I can't keep up with all the free content out there. Like, there is so much great free content out there. You make free content. I do. Jake does too. So like, we have a Patreon. If you want to get that next level, if you want to get like even more immersive, if you're not finding enough free content, I don't know how you're not, because there's a ton, but like, if you want even more, $10 a month, you get all the past presentations, you get the Discord, you get all the future ones too.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yep.
Man, Dan, I mean, you've literally answered every question I had for you. I really appreciate, giving me all the insight and how everything, works kind of behind the scenes in your business, how you got started. Is there any other topics you want to cover and talk about?
Did you want to touch on, I know I watched your video earlier today. I don't know when this is going to go live, but
Yeah.
did you want to touch on the whole modern? I know during your live with Jake, and I think like disagreements are great. Debates are great. It is unhealthy for anyone to agree with someone else on everything. Like it's a massive hobby. There's so many people in it. No one should be seen as like unquestioned, absolute, everything they say is gospel and just follow it. So it's great when people have different takes and can like, I don't know if you watched you went on with Poke Knowledge. Did you watch my live with Poke Knowledge?
Yeah.
Where we like debated about MetaZoo?
Yeah.
It was fun, and it was like very, very different takes, but we were respectful and we just talked it through, and we didn't, neither one of us like agreed with the other one at the end of it, but it was interesting conversation. So looping back to the whole, the modern investment video, I think there's some disconnect between you and like Jake. You and Jake went back and forth on some of it, and you made the video. I know that there was the disagreement or the disconnect between the actual, and you went and you found the numbers. Like I didn't go into your spreadsheet. I didn't verify the numbers, but I believe that you were capable of accumulating the right numbers, and you took into account selling on eBay, and you took into account the fees for that. And the only points that I would bring up as like counterpoints, and not to say you're wrong, but just to like give the devil's advocate, give the other side of it, because I've been here for like 8 years, and you've been here for quite a while too. But if you were to do the same exercise, like right now, today, looking back 5 years, everything knocked out of the park. Look back 10 years, 15 years, everything is just crazy. But we're at like a crazy time in the hobby too. 2014 to 20, I don't know the exact year, 2019. As I said, you used to be able to go to a distributor and you used to be able to buy 2 or 3 years back. I'm talking at distributor prices. So as of today, what's a 3-year-old set? 2019 would have been like, yeah, what's that box? Like 600, 700 bucks? I don't even know. Like honestly.
Yeah, the 500s.
So today, going back 3 years, it's like an 8X. If you go back 5 years ago, though, that was not the case. What's like Evolutions, it took 4 years to do anything, and then it did it all in like 4 months. But basically what I'm saying is Pokemon is comprised of a 25-year time span. And if you were to chop it up into 5-year blocks, there would be 20 of them, right? Like it took you 5 years to get your first one. And then every subsequent year, you have a new like 5-year look back. So if you were to do that exercise, you would find that like most of them were relatively flat. Whether or not they would have beaten the S&P over the same time span, I'm not sure. I didn't go that far to do that, but
yeah. And after adding, like the comments about the compounding interest and adding all the dividends in, yeah, I mean, it would take a lot higher level math that I'm willing to do to figure all that in.
Like, and I'm saying this as someone, the largest single % gain I've seen on anything, I think, is the Bitcoin that I bought. Probably. So I've made crazy returns in crypto. I've made probably honestly Pokemon, probably some collection that I bought where I graded like a few PSA 10s that 1,000% or more. But so I've made more. Like I say this as someone who's made more in crypto and made more in Pokemon, but the S&P 500 and just like traditional investments in general, they have like a 200-year, 150-year track record. And we don't need to get into, that's just like my general counterpoint that I would push back a little bit, and I would just urge caution, because another thing too, like everyone's scale's different, everyone's situation's different. But personally, when I was employed as a chemical engineer, my employer, we didn't have an amazing one, but we had a decent one. If I put 1% into my 401k, they would match it 1 for 1. So I put in 1%, they would put in 1%. So 1 turns to 2 instantly. That's a free doubling of money. Not only that, the 1% that I put in, I was putting in traditional. So it was like tax exempt. You defer the taxes until retirement when you withdraw it. Not to turn this too much into finances. And I'm not a financial advisor, neither are you in any way, any capacity. But for putting in that 1%, it also made you eligible for profit sharing. So like I put in 20 while I was there. I was putting in 20. They gave me the free one, so it was 21. Profit sharing for my 10 years varied anywhere between 3 and 5%. So I was putting in 20% and averaging like 25 total. So 5%. But I literally worked with people who didn't put in 1% because they wanted to invest in crypto or Pokemon or whatever. And I'm like, guys, if you make like a general laborer or whatever, if they were making 40 grand a year, you put in 1%, it's $400. It's $8 per paycheck. Like you're not even going to notice it. It's pre-tax. That $8 instantly, without even investing it in anything, it's 4x. It turns into 40, guaranteed. And people were literally like, they were so like, that's why I just like to push back a little bit. And I hope people are at least take the free money. If your employer has a match, utilize the tax sheltered accounts to some extent to save in like traditionally proven assets. If you want to do Pokemon's a lot more fun than that, but have some amount of a baseline. I just worry showing a video like that, 5-year history, this is proven. You mentioned in your video, which was great, you mentioned that past returns, past performance doesn't guarantee future and all that. But I worry that some people might watch that and their sole takeaway are going to be like, I'm not going to put in 5% into my 401k because I can double my money every 5 years with Pokemon, and stocks only double it every 10 years or whatever. Like, that's the only thing I wanted to push back a little bit and say, because I say this as someone, every year I'm putting in like 5 figures, mid 5 figures into all the modern sets. I'm buying a lot of it because I'm bullish long-term on Pokemon. I quit my job to do it full time, clearly, but I also have the foundation of like no debt, for my age, a very high portion in traditional investments and all that. And that's the only thing I wanted to say, like on that. Pokemon very well could outperform stocks 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? But it's scary, some of the things that I see with like friends and family and old coworkers and their complete disregard for anything traditional whatsoever. It's scary.
Yeah. Gosh, there's so much there. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
First
Sorry.
off, anyone who's getting any type of match, take every bit of the match you can take. It's free money. It's an automatic return. You can't get it anywhere else. So yeah, I agree with that.
They're like I think my mom's company, if she puts in, they'll match 50% up to 12, I think. For certain people, depending on where they are in their life, it might be hard to save 12%. Like at my company, anyone can save 1%. If someone wants to disagree in the comments, come comment and tell me how someone can't save 1%. Anyone can. 12%, okay, I get it. Maybe not everyone can do all of that, but like my mom can put in 12% and she gets 6 for free. So she's got like an instant 50% return on her money, guaranteed. Like there's not many things where you can say guaranteed, but that is instantly when she puts it in. Like you got to take whatever you can afford to take of the guaranteed stuff. Because 50% per year compounded over 5 years, that's like really, really good. Sorry to cut you off there, but I just wanted to say,
I love it. No, I mean, there's a lot of things that it's just Pokemon knowledge brought up a bunch of good points about, obviously you can't compare any type of investing, apple to apple. Like the Pokemon can't be compared to the stock market. The stock market can't be compared to real estate. Real estate can't be compared to Bitcoin or NFTs. I mean, everything's got its own, stability, risk factors, things like that. With the stocks and the Pokemon, I just feel like it's compared so much, and there's so many opinions out there. I just wanted to get some type of something down on paper that showed where things were at. I know, obviously there are a lot of people in the comments already talking about the taxes, and Yeah, the taxes are a part of it, but as you know, I mean, when you run your own business, I don't run a Pokemon business. I mean, obviously I've sold a lot of Pokemon product, but my main business is, I mean, there's a lot of advantages you get as being self-employed, a lot of write-offs, a lot of things, talk to a tax advisor. We're not tax advisors, but because when you pull your money out eventually in a regular 401k, in a Roth IRA or something, a Roth 401k, if you can have one of those, you don't get taxed when you take the money out, but you're putting in already taxed money. But in a regular 401k, you're going to pay taxes on earned income when you take it out. So whatever income bracket you're in, or how much money you take out of it in a year, you'll pay taxes based on that income bracket. So you're going to pay taxes on your Pokemon sales, but you're also going to pay taxes on your investment earnings too. The rates might be different, but based off what kind of business you have, what kind of write-offs you have, it could bring them similar. So the taxes are a hard subject to tackle, and I couldn't tackle the taxes in that video. Well, I'd like to, but what are your thoughts on that?
Taxes are so convoluted, and it's I think some people get sick of all the disclaimers that people like us have to throw out constantly. Not accountants, not investment advisors, but you really need to. Personal finance has always been like a passion of mine as well, a hobby. I'm an engineer, so like optimization is in my blood. Spreadsheets are in my blood. So money just lends itself very well to spreadsheets and optimization, and tax optimization is a very underappreciated thing. I think it's very appreciated by like the wealthy who know how to pay accountants to do all the fancy footwork to like be multi-billionaires and pay less than people earning 100,000 a year in taxes. It's crazy the different treatment of like earned income versus passive income versus investment income. And I've a year now, I've made a couple of videos that have delved a little bit into finances and investing and things like that. I kind of want to make more, but I just need to think of the proper way to do them.
I'll let you keep going, but I don't really want to talk about it too much, but another thing about YouTube is that things that cause any type of shock or any type of debate or any type of have any type of hard opinions on them, they tend to do better videos. They tend to get more comments, more likes and dislikes as well. And so that's another kind of troubling part about YouTube is, sometimes you have to push the envelope on some videos if you do want to kind of get grow your channel, get seen, things like that. So keep that in mind, everyone out there, as well as sometimes videos are made with hot button subjects in mind to kind of push the envelope on some topics.
And it's just like mainstream media. It's just like media, like division and stuff that generates clicks, that drama, all that generates clicks, and it's unfortunate. But my best video on my channel was the video where I talked about like being done with CGC. Like people just love to watch me trash talk CGC, and I didn't even really get like crazy with it. I just said, as a business PSA for these reasons, and I'm kind of getting done with CGC. What people loved it, and it was my best video yet.
I haven't watched your last video yet, but are you back using CGC now?
I kind of did like the YouTube thing. I put in my title, like, because
I was gonna go back and watch it. I haven't got to it yet.
I think it was in January. I made the video that did the best out of any of my, and not even 10,000 views. I think high single digits, 6,000-7,000, somewhere in there. I'm still a very, very small channel. It is crazy to think like that many people watched it or watched some portion of it at least. But one card, I thought I had it next to me, but I don't think I do. So CGC treats damage not as harshly as PSA. If you have like a Masaki promo with the corner indent, or in my case, it was a Metazu sample card that has a couple indents on the back bottom, it's an automatic 6 at PSA. I'm going to grade it with CGC to try to get like a 7.5 or an 8 or something. So I think CGC is still useful in situations like that. But other than that, like I did kind of like clickbait it a little bit, cracking a PSA slab to send to CGC. I knew that would like, people would be like, oh, what's this guy doing? He said he was done with them. Now he's going back. And
I like it.
yeah, you kind of got to play the game to some extent, right? Like if you really want to grow. And but anyway, like the whole finance thing that I was talking about, it's tough because I'm not a financial advisor, and I have an accountant and I talk to them about financial planning and all that. And I know what's right for me. And I try to just, again, my channel, I try to demonstrate what I'm doing. And a big part of my strategy and a big part of my like long-term plan is based around like financial independence. And I have a certain mix of, I do both traditional and Roth, and it's highly dependent on my income level for the year. Again, it's an optimization problem. When your income's higher and you're in a higher bracket, you want to tend to go traditional. If you have some years where you know you're going to be a little bit lower in a lower bracket, Roth might be better because then you're paying the taxes now. So in retirement, I don't intend to work full-time to 65, like kind of is the norm. I'm a fairly atypical person, I think. I'm going to have a blend of Roth and traditional holdings. I'm likely going to be like, I never picture myself retiring altogether. I'm not going to like sit on a beach doing nothing, be on a golf course. Like I love eBay. Even before Pokemon, my 8 years of Pokemon on eBay, I was selling beer steins. I was selling video games. I was selling coins. I've been on YouTube for like half of my life, like probably back to high school when I tried to trade in games to GameStop and they were going to give me like 25 cents a piece. So I opened up an eBay account and I started selling then. So like, I'm always going to be doing something, generating some amount of income. And I've just got this like future planned out, some basket of Roth, some traditional, and it's hard to get too detailed into it unless I get like fully detailed into it. And that just, one, I don't know how useful it is because my scenario is very different than a lot of people. And two, it's like a real lot of openness and disclosure. I try to be pretty open and I try to show a lot of stuff, but showing everything is a bit much, I think.
I mean, so basically, I mean, what I'm kind of think you're getting at is, are you basically getting kind of two sets of nest eggs, one that you're going to start taking out before like pre-retirement age, and then have another nest egg for post-retirement age?
Yeah. Because I mentioned a blend. I was talking mainly about the retirement buckets, but then there is like the third, after maxing out the 401ks and the IRAs and stuff like that, you get everything in your tax shelter accounts, some blend of traditional, some blend of Roth, then having like brokerage accounts, taxable accounts for any kind of a gap between like pre-Social Security. And this is like getting really deep, really into the weeds on all that, but it's all the stuff that I'm personally like planning my family's finances for the next, hopefully 40, 50 years.
It's the exact same thing I do. That's why it makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a brokerage account I'm building because we're the same way. We don't, me and my wife, we decide we're not having kids. So we're the same way. We want to retire early. But we also want to have a nest egg built up in the brokerage account to pay ourselves while we're waiting to reach retirement age to touch the 401k and Roths type thing. So it sounds a lot like what you're trying to do too.
And there's a lot, like I could go on. We've already been going for what, a while with I could go on another few hours with Pokemon. I could go on a few hours with finance, but yeah, there's so many like financial independence, retire early, less the RE for me. It's more just FI, like financial independence, being at a point like I can't buy enough of these that I can just like, if I had $5 million of this, I can't passively live off that forever. If I have $5 million in the S&P 500, that's going to spit off $75,000 a year in dividends. That's almost double my household spending. So like that is the allure too of traditional investments for me. I envision a future where I get enough holdings that the passive income that those generate funds my lifestyle altogether. I mean, that's what true financial independence was. Like, envision, for anyone listening still this deep in, envision a scenario where you're getting your paycheck without working. Like, you're literally, every day you wake up, all your bills are paid, everything's covered. That is true financial independence. And then what would you do with your time? Like, that's where I want to get to in life. And honestly, like 8-9 months ago, whenever it was that I quit my job, that was almost like phase one towards it to some extent. Like, I definitely, I was making more money doing both. So as I mentioned, I made more money in 2020 on Pokemon than in chemical engineering. In 2021, I made more doing this than I would have chemical engineering. Doing both though, and working 60 or 80-hour weeks, I would have made even more. That wasn't sustainable. So like, this was me. I wouldn't call myself remotely semi-retired or anything, but this was almost like phase 0, step 1A or whatever, towards 5, 10, 20 years from now, being semi-retired to some extent.
Yeah, I think all the titles are unimportant. I mean, you're doing what you like to do each day. You know, you set your own schedule, you have time with your wife and kids. I mean, that's the important part. You know, you can call it, people can call it whatever they want to and say they retire by whatever age, but the main thing is you're doing what you like to do each day instead of, you know, maybe you enjoyed engineering to an extent, but I'm sure nowhere near as much as you enjoy what you're doing now.
I definitely enjoyed it, but like, and I don't want to get, when I made my video on my YouTube about quitting my job, it was like 2020 was a perfect storm for Pokemon. So many things happened that just propelled it. Me quitting my job was almost similar in a way. I didn't really dive into the negative, but there were some negatives going on at work. I loved my job, like the job part of it, but almost any job has some amount of like politics and things like that going on with it. So just the timing of some negatives along with like massive positives in Pokemon, it was just the perfect time to get done with it. And I don't regret it at all at this point. Maybe in 5 years I will, but theoretically I could go back and do something else. But if I take the right steps over the next 5, maybe even less years than that, I could be pretty damn close to that FI that I'm chasing. Depending on where the market goes, both the traditional market and the Pokemon market. I'm heavily invested in both in a dollars and cents perspective.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the Pokemon market's not as important, but you know, the way I always look at it is, well, if the market goes to zero, then the whole world's, you know, going down and we have a lot more problems to worry about the money. So, you know.
That's what I mentioned in my one investing video where I had like I had like a Coca-Cola and stuff back here. If we get to a scenario like any given year, some of those stocks have and will continue to drop 20%, 40% maybe. But like, if we get to a future where people aren't shopping at Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, McDonald's, if people aren't drinking Coca-Cola and Pepsi and things, if people aren't, if life as we know it just ceases to exist and these companies literally go to zero, there's some really bad things going on, and crypto is not going to save you and Pokemon's not going to save you. You can't eat gold and silver. And yeah, you're going to have like, you're going to hope you have a pretty decent bit of land, which honestly, that's like another goal of mine too. Like, I just want to live on like a homestead, 100 acres with like raising goats and have like a pond to fish out of.
Similarities, like a lot of stuff you're saying like is right up my alley. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
And
it's great too. Like I think, again, going back to that video, some disagreements, some pushback, and there's a lot of common ground though between us too. Like different on certain aspects, but finding that common ground, shared passion for Pokemon. It's great to be able to just talk and have some disagreements, but be respectful and share. Yeah, just
Yeah,
share that
that's
passion.
why before we went, on video as well as, obviously because you're on the, Patreon with Jake, I was asking how he felt about me because I was like, I like Jake and I like his channel and I've been following him almost since he started YouTube and I have some disagreements with some things, especially on modern and sealed and things like that, but I just kind of get the feeling he takes things from me a little, I guess a little harsher than I'm trying to give off, or some of the things videos I make or points I make. I just hope, I was just wanting to get your take because I hope he's not like super upset with me or has a really bad outlook or opinion of me. So I don't know.
No, and as I mentioned, I wasn't. I've always been. I've tried to get out of it to some extent, but my YouTube content that I consume, I've almost been in a bit of a bubble. Like I consume Jake's, I consume SM Pratt's, ZNG Emporium. He's not making a ton right now, but hopefully he'll get back into it.
Which
But
is
I
sad.
had maybe 10 to 20 people that I was subscribed to, and I wasn't really straying from it. In 2020, though, during the boom, there was a lot of scary content out there. Like when I went on Jake's content or channel, and when I went on Pokemon Radar's channel before I even had my own channel, I was talking about the $1,000 PSA 10 EVs or 7, 8, whatever they went to. We were talking about the $30,000 boxes, and we're like, this is crazy. This is not sustainable. Talking about the $5,000, $6,000 base unlimited Charizards. In the meantime, I wasn't watching these channels, but Jake did like watch a lot more of these. I think there were people saying, go buy these $5,000 Charizards before they go to 10. Go buy these $800 EVs before they go to 2,000, whatever. Like, go buy the $30,000 box before it goes to 50. And I don't know if he probably worries to some extent. You might paint too rosy of a picture. And that's where I came in and I pushed back. And like the crazy thing about it and the scary thing about it is like when evolutions went from 100 to 200, I sold a bunch. And when it went to 300, 400, if I had a channel at the time, I would have been like, I'm selling all these. This is crazy. And people who didn't listen to me, if people went and bought from me at 300, I went from 100 to 300. They could have, like, I tripled my money. They could have tripled it again. Like, I was wrong in a lot of ways, being too cautious on that. And then, like, still today, like, what is evolution? $600-700? That one still blows my mind how high it is. I would have thought it would have came down a lot lower. But I think some of it is like the context of he's seen more of that type of content, and he's had a lot more than me. But I legitimately, I mentioned this before, it's kind of weird and hard to talk about to some extent, but I sold a $35,000 PSA 9 holo Shadowless set. That was when PSA 9 Shadowless Charizard peaked at like $15,000 to $20,000. And the Blastoise got to like 8,000, I want to say. Charizard is down around 5 or 6 right now, so it's down 60%. I sold that, and I sold mid high 5 figures to one individual, and they were almost like asking me, do you think this is a good investment? Do you think? And I'm like, the only thing I'm going to tell you is I'm selling it to you at this price. That's all you need to know. Like, you're a buyer at this price, I'm a seller. I didn't say this, but like in my mind, it's like, I never thought the price was going to get to here. That's why I'm selling it. It could double from here for all I know. In 10 years, maybe it will be double what he paid me for it. But so I think like, and that's a large part of my channel. That's why a year later I have 1,400 subs. You're probably going to hit 14 or 1,500 subs. You're going to pass me in the next month or two, probably, the way that you're going, because you're more bullish on it. And you're like, people genuinely want to hear, to some, like, people want to hear that if you buy this stuff, you're probably going to make money. And I think you like I say it in a less direct, more roundabout way. I do buy it and I think it'll do well, but I think we already went through it like half an hour ago where I pushed back a little bit on some of that video from earlier today. But
You explained it perfectly. That was a perfect explanation, because what you said hits home, because I probably had at least 5, 6, 7 different people when I was selling off my collection on eBay ask me those same exact questions about, like, and they're asking someone who's selling it how it's going to do. So obviously my incentive is to tell you it's going to do well because I want to sell my product, but at the same time it's like morally wrong. And it was like I said the same type of thing, like hey, it could keep going. The reason I'm selling, I've made the gains that I've wanted to make on it. It's already went higher than I thought it was going to go within the next 5 years. So I'm happy where it's at. But it's this is the market price right now, so I understand it. It's always hard to have those conversations, because it's like the purchasers are asking you investing advice, and you're just in that setting, you're just a seller. You're not an investment advisor. I didn't have a YouTube channel. I didn't have any type of following. So yeah, it was really hard. But I'm really glad you just gave that whole explanation about how the reasons why there's pushback and stuff. And yeah, I'll take that more into account in the future. That makes a lot more sense of, like, the people continuing to pump into the hype. And I'm not trying to do that. And also, I when you were saying that, I was trying to go through my mind. I'm trying to think, did those people have like positions, or I'm trying to think what was their, what was, in it for them to be pushing those products? Was it just to try and grow their channels, or did they have large positions in those products? Like that's the only thing I can't grasp, is the reason they were trying to push everything into the hype.
I really don't know. Like I didn't even watch a lot of the content, and yeah, it's a lot of the things that I sold. Like I sold a lot of stuff during 2020. So I sold 6 figures worth of stuff that dropped more than 50%. And thankfully it wasn't too many people that reached out to me, but like there's a couple specific individuals that some of them reached out to me like 6 months later, and they're like, this stuff dropped this much. What should I do? And I think Jake being a bigger channel, I think he saw more of that. And I think back to some of my old coworkers. I think back to, I have family and friends who are just perpetually broke. They don't save any money for their retirement. And again, like literally passing up free money to try and go like triple their money in modern Pokemon or Shiba Inu coin or some crazy NFT. Or so like if Jake or I were to make that same video, I think you put forth good information. I love spreadsheets, as I said earlier. I would have just contextualized it a lot more. Like you looked at 1 5-year time period, I would have tried to look at all of them. I actually, I didn't even get into it, but I did a little bit of research, like in case it came up. Clearly traditional investments have been a thing for 200 years or plus, whatever.
Right.
So not only do we have, like in Pokemon, we have about 25-year rolling periods, and all like out of the 20, 17 or 18 of them were relatively flat or only slightly up. And then these recent ones are like massively up. With stocks, anyone can look this up. I think the S&P 500, it hasn't yet, doesn't mean it never will, but I think the S&P 500 12 years is the time period where it's never had like a negative return. You could probably snapshot a 12-year time period in Pokemon where some things were like negative. Like people were literally buying these packs right here. This pack that's like, it peaked at almost $1,000 during the hype. Now it's $400 or something like that, maybe. These packs were going for like $1 or $2. Jungle and Fossil and base packs were going for like $1 or $2 in late 2000, like 09, 10, somewhere in. I don't know where exactly because I wasn't in the hobby, but I've heard from people who were buying loose Jungle and Fossil and base packs for like $1 or $2 a piece.
Yeah, I mean,
So like you made an 8 minute video that was like snappy and catchy and like YouTube algorithm approved. I would have made a 20-minute video that was less optimistic. It would have made people not feel as great. And it would have I would have said, we could see this again. 5 years, Pokemon killed the S&P 500. ETBs did better than booster boxes, and it could happen again. But I also would have said, like, historically, it's
Yeah. I just think, I mean, I think the next 5 years is going to be a lot better example, because when you start going back mid XY, like mid XY and before that, I mean, even that's just not a good representation either, because the market wasn't there, right? There was no one in. I mean, Pokemon Go and Evolutions brought a whole group of people, millions of people, but then Logan Paul, it was just like astronomical amounts of people. And so like it changed, those two kind of areas changed the market forever. And so I don't think, even with Sword and Shield being printed, to oblivion and all that and reprinted and all those things, I just still think it's a completely different animal than going and looking like what was happening back in black and white, right?
Yeah, and like, again, I'm not trying to necessarily say the S&P 500 is guaranteed to destroy it every time, and it's just like, in some ways, like my channel, I feel like I'm quite knowledgeable and experienced in Pokemon, but I'm really cautious in that I'll always just say, I'm doing this for this reason, but I'm very passive in, like, I'm not going to say buy this. I'm not going to say expect this to go to this exact price in this amount of time. I think that's part of the reason, like, I have a low ceiling on YouTube, because I'm just less flashy and also less like optimistic with like specific numbers and stuff. If that makes sense.
No, I mean, it's smart. It's safer. I don't know. I guess I just have the belief in me that it just seems, I don't want to use the word easier. I guess just, it seems more likely to me, even with the new sets, that, getting in an $80 booster box, that you have less downside risk and also a greater potential, to get to a 100% return before the S&P is going to get to another 100% return. So I think like an $80 box is going to get to 160 a lot more likely than the S&P is going to double in price in that same amount of time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, in a way, I agree with a lot of those points. Like, I recently bought Chilling Reign, recently being like a few months ago, I think, whenever it was pretty close to the bottom, at least short-term bottom, with incentives, with eBay Bucks, credit card rewards. My distributor offered it at 78, I think. I was able to get it like 72 or 73 on eBay. I bought several cases worth, and I think it's way, like, if I had to pick one or the two, my traditional investments in the S&P 500 or that Chilling Reign booster box, if one of them would, like, which one is more likely to drop 40% in the next year? Way more likely the S&P 500 does. If you look at the historical PE ratios and CAPE, all that, like, historically speaking, I don't think we've ever seen Crimson Invasion went to $69.99 on eBay for a while there, but for a $70 buy, just to make a round number, to drop 40%, that would put that box down at 42, right? Yeah, minus 28. So that would be very unprecedented. Whereas the S&P 500 has a long track record of, like, every 10 years on average, it drops 40%. Like, not like clockwork, because if you could predict it like clockwork, everyone could make a ton of money. But historically speaking, the S&P 500 drops 10% so many times in a decade, and 20%, 40%. So in some ways, like, Pokemon is better in that respect. And I get what you're saying, but there's other aspects too. Like, when I was pushing back earlier on certain things, and I'm going to make a video on this coming up soon, but like, one thing I worry about to some extent too is lack of insurance with any of this. Like, I know a lot of people who have 5, 6, 7 figures of Pokemon in their house, in their basement, wherever, completely uninsured. And that's pretty scary. As a business, I haven't had it always, but I utilize like the PWCC vault. I utilize an actual like business insurance now that deals in collectibles. Like that's a risk that exists. If your house burns down, your 401k doesn't go to zero. Some people out there don't know this, but like my house is worth $200,000 to $250,000. I live in a relatively low cost of living area in the woods in New York. But if I look at if I just look at the policy numbers, I don't know exactly what they are, but say it's insured for 250,000 for the structure. I think a lot of times they like double that. It might be $500,000 or something. Yeah. And then they'll do some percentage of that they'll do for like personal property and all that.
Right.
But if you get into the fine print, if I have $300,000 personal property coverage, that doesn't cover collectibles at all. Like the sub limit on collectibles oftentimes is $1,000 or $5,000 if you're lucky. So there are people that have 50 grand, and if their house were to flood, if their house were to burn down, it goes to zero. And the risk of that, what's the odds any given house in the US burns down in any given year? Extremely low. But a big thing about finances and like running a business and trying to invest and wipeout risk is something that you always need to avoid. Like no matter what payout someone offers you, never play a game of Russian roulette. No potential payoff is worth that wipeout risk. And that's completely getting way out there now with these rants I go on, but
no, and I know after talking to you, I am going to try to do a better job of making sure everyone realizes the risks and understands like the different things that can happen. I think the reason I'm passionate in my videos and like, I just truly believe in the things that I'm talking about, the things I'm saying. I mean, most of the things in my videos, I've already, got positions in myself. So it's not like I'm pushing something I don't have. No, I just truly think that, especially like, with stocks, it's like, in the video, I compared just the S&P index to like a Pokemon, basically index of sun and moon. Right. Mm-hmm. And, with the stock market, you have, analysts at every big bank on Wall Street getting paid, 400 grand a year or more to literally just sit there and study charts and stocks all day long and pick the best ones. And, you have, all the analysts deciding which stocks to put on the S&P all the time. And, it's like you have the smartest people in the world, basically, deciding where to position these trillions of dollars of investments in these stocks. And no matter how much extra time you have in a day, you're just not going to be able to, beat those people. Like you can make good decisions for yourself. You can also get lucky. You can also make right timing. But at the end of the day, I think you have a lot better chance at getting knowledgeable and learning about Pokemon and, positioning your money in there to, at least meet or beat those expectations that you would get in the stock market. Like, basically like with, Sun and Moon, Sword and Shield, any of them, if you're not just buying like an index, if you're not just buying every box, if you're, strategically picking sets, getting under market value, finding deals, and, using your knowledge on what you've seen happen before, what popularity does, and, learn about the supply, like about the supplies. I mean, I just think you can, I don't know. I think you can kind of position yourself with your investments in Pokemon to give better returns than, just blindly throwing in an index fund a lot of the times. And so that's kind of why I wanted to make a video like that. And I just wanted to make it as fair as possible. That's why I just showed, one of every box at retail, when in reality, I mean, like you just said, you didn't buy any of those boxes at retail. You bought them even under your distributor price, or, you can find auctions that go lower than average value. You can find, products from time to time that, are priced under, the market value of what's inside. So I just think there's a lot of smaller opportunities in Pokemon, little niche markets, little pockets, where you can really kind of greatly improve your returns a lot, more than kind of like the stock market where everyone's buying at market price,
Yeah. And that I mentioned some of that in my investment video. Again, That was like a 30-minute video, and YouTube just doesn't like them as much. If you put all the context in, if you put all the disclaimers in that I like to, it just turns into somewhere between like a 20 and 30-minute video, when YouTube really tends to like 8 to 12-minute videos. I'm bad at that.
It's hard. It's hard.
Yeah, I'm really bad at that. And but as you said, like, my, just quickly summing up what I do, I take advantage of the fact that it's easy to invest in traditional stuff passively and tax advantage. So I spend a few hours a year looking at my portfolios, maybe doing very small rebalances. And that's like a decent chunk of my money, but it's got all this history, all this proven track record, and betting on, literally, I mentioned in my video, the productive output and advancement of humanity. So all that stuff I do in a few hours a year, with a decent chunk of money, though, in tax advantage accounts primarily. And then literally my business, my job, 40 plus hours a week, I'm spending the time actively trading in Pokemon, because in the same given day, and I've done it a bunch of times, I might be able to buy this at auction for 300 and sell it on Buy It Now for 500 the same day. Like, there are opportunities out there to make arbitrage on. I can't buy Tesla. I can't magically buy an auction of one stock of Tesla for like 20% discount to its book price and then sell it as a Buy It Now. I can't grade a stock of Tesla. Like, I actively act on my experience and knowledge in this like inefficient, illiquid market. So yeah, a lot of those things can be advantages, but like the background of some foundation in traditional stuff, not skipping out on your guaranteed 3x match or something like that. That's the stuff that just blows my mind. And I know it's a thing, because like we used to have our meetings with HR every year, and they used to talk about I think our company, I don't know what the exact numbers were, but like 1 in 5 or 1 in 6 people in the company weren't even participating in the program, turning 1% into 5xing 1%.
Yeah, that gets into a whole different worry. It's like, is our generation going to get to retirement age and it's going to be just a bloodbath?
And everyone's adults, and everyone's got to make their own adult decisions. And it's scary to think that, like, in a perfect world, any crazy videos could exist on YouTube. Like, and you're not doing this, but some people did this during 2020. Like, you didn't say skip out on your 401k, remortgage your house, call your credit card company to expand the limit, put everything into Chilling Reign, Battle Styles, anything like that. Like, you didn't. Some channels are doing that. Some channels were doing that. And in a perfect world, every like free thinking individual should be able to see that and be like, this is kind of crazy. But there's some percentage of people out there that are just very, I don't know if gullible is the right word, or very easily swayed. And
and Pokemon Knowledge brought up that point about, about like the ethics of, making like investment videos, or like the top 5 videos I've done, which I do them a little different. I don't just like, on my top 5, like, buy videos, I just try to show items that I feel have like more value with the packs and the cards inside and with the actual like items going for, kind of like the Face Collide, pre-release kits right now, or, like the celebrations, chests when they were under like $25, and the celebrations packs were selling for $5 a piece. So I just try to show things like that. And he was, kind of making the question of, do you feel like, you're going to affect the market by doing this? And I think, I mean, at least at this point and for the, foreseeable future, I think I'm way too small to affect any type of market on in-print modern product. I mean, I'm not pushing like PSAs. Yeah. What
the key is that you were like, if you continue to talk about in-print modern product that's easily accessible, like, I think I can still get them. I'm not 100%, but those Celebrations collector's chests, I know as recently as 2 or 3 weeks ago, I did watch that video. You talked about the Charizard and Sylveon boxes. I was getting those as recently as a couple weeks ago, same as the Celebrations collector's chests. That's why their prices were more reasonable, because like people were just actively buying them from the distributor, immediately selling them on the market, and then replenishing. If you can immediately replenish it, you don't have to make like as much of a margin. Whereas people who like can't replenish their ultra premium collections, at least not for now, you hold those tighter, you try to make more of a margin because you don't know if you're ever going to get any more. But yeah, if you ever transition to like talking about vintage product, and if you have 2,000, 5,000, 50,000 subscribers, and you talk about a card that's pop 50 and PSA 10, and it's only $1,000 card, if 5 of your viewers go out and buy the 5 available copies on the market, like you could definitely move things. That one video you did was interesting, where you talked about the like the BIOS that you did.
Yeah.
And that was that was you acting as an individual, maybe with a friend.
Yeah.
And you move things, or you felt like you moved things to some extent. And if you had a channel of 20,000 people that followed you,
yeah,
not everyone's going to buy one, but if 1% of them do, that's 200 people. If 0.1% of them do, that's 20 people. So like orders of magnitude more than you as an individual.
Yeah, if it ever got, I would never do anything like that. And if it ever got to the point where I thought I was actually physically affecting anything, I wouldn't do it anymore.
And some people do though.
Put it this way, yeah, it's like, what incentive is there for me? I mean, I leave some links, that's about it. Like, it's not like there's a huge incentive for me to, especially with PSA cards, like a bunch of different sellers selling, one of each. I mean, you can't, there's no incentive for me unless I were to buy a huge position myself and then try to dump them onto the market as they went up. So, it's literally just, the stuff I show is like literally stuff that most of the stuff that I've already been buying. And I feel like, maybe other people are missing, other people want to, kind of be shown, the deals that are out there. Maybe they haven't found them or haven't been looking. So that's basically the, what I'm going for on those videos. And yeah, if I felt, if I I know anyone can just lie, but if I legitimately felt that it was going to make any type of impact, I wouldn't be doing it, because all the big sellers on eBay. I mean, sometimes I don't know if they do it on purpose or they mess up, but sometimes they don't put like they'll let the quantity be seen, and you can click on it and see how much they have. And I mean, sometimes they're up in like the 500s and 600s of the boxes, and that's just one seller. And then that's just one seller on eBay. So then you have all the sellers on eBay, you have TCG Player, you have the regular, and it's just like, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of these items. Someone with less than 1,000 subscribers telling people this is a good buy is not going to affect anything,
Yeah, they're printing 3 to 4 billion cards a year right now, and that's going into 4 to 6 sets. It's crazy.
Yes, I think we're okay. I think we're okay with that. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on before we ended?
I think we got into a lot. I think we covered quite a bit. Atypical content for your channel, right?
I know, right? I needed some of this though. I gotta start adding some of this in.
Mix it up a little bit. Yeah. Nick and I, we got done with the podcast now, so that content is leaving my channel for our new channel, but I got to figure out like what's your current upload schedule? Like I don't watch them all, but I watched a decent amount of them recently. Do you do set days, or is it just like whenever?
So I've already been through kind of the ringer with YouTube. Did you ever go through any type of time where YouTube like kind of mess with your channel at all? I don't know if it's because I was growing fast or not, but when I was at about 500 or so subscribers, overnight, YouTube did something. They took like 80 something of my subscribers away like that. And it also like, I guess, stopped pushing my channel. And so it was like overnight, I lost a bunch of subscribers. I stopped getting views, and my video stopped getting pushed. Like my click-through rate went like way down. And then I messaged them about it. And like days later, they got back to me and said, YouTube performs quarterly audits. and it's a normal process and things like that. And so then like 3 days later, all of a sudden I got all those like 82 subscribers back in a second. And then my channel started doing well again. And they say it was to check for bots or like anything like that. And I'm just like, well, one, how do 82 people, you take 82 people away from the channel, and then how do they come back? Because if you audited it and you found there were bots, wouldn't you have just left them off? And so I went through some really weird stuff. And but up until then, I was trying to upload every day, but it kind of got to the point where I was missing a couple of days, but it was doing really well. And then I got COVID, and I ended up having I had a really bad case of it. And so I didn't post for like a week and a half. And then I came back, and I was just going to post kind of when I had time. And YouTube algorithm picked up one of my first videos I came back with. And so from then on, I've been trying to do every other day. Yeah. Sometimes I don't make it, but yeah, every day is just way too much for me. It's hard. I mean, I know it seems like, oh my gosh, it's like a, 8-10 minute video. It's easy to film. It's like, you know how it is. I mean, you go through multiple takes, and, you say the wrong word. Then as you're doing another take, you think of another thing you want to say. So you have to add that in, and I do all mine with no cuts, because I'm no like a tech savvy guy. I don't have all this software, and nor do I know how to use it. So I make all my videos with absolutely no cuts, where I have to talk through the whole thing. And so, yeah, it takes a good amount of time and energy. And so I basically settled on trying to do every other day.
See, I'm bad. I think I've only ever reshot a video once, and it's because
wow.
Yeah. So I've been doing this for a year now, over 100 videos. And I think one time I recorded like a PSA return video, and I forget, I talked about some relevant current topic, but I already had a bunch of pre-recorded content for the next few days, maybe the next week. And then some big news came out, and I'm like, I really should add that to this. So I like re-recorded and talked about the new thing where the old thing I had talked about was no longer relevant. So I try not to record too far in advance, but I had a good rhythm going for several months. With off podcast week, I was doing Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then on podcast week, I would do Monday. And then since I was doing like a 2 to 3 hour video Thursday or later in the week, I would just do Thursday. So I was doing like 4 of my own videos every 2 weeks, essentially. And then with the podcast, now that the podcast is leaving for a new channel, I haven't settled. Like I had a decent amount of videos I wanted to do. So last week I did Monday, Wednesday, Friday. This week I'm doing Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And at some point, I think I'll do like a channel update and set some new schedule. I don't know if I don't really want to do 3 times a week every week. It's kind of a lot.
It's so funny because I mean, even me when I didn't have a channel, it's like when people hear people say that, they just immediately think, oh, wow, posting 3 YouTube videos is a lot of work, huh? It really is. It just is.
Yeah. And even the way I do it, like I don't do, props to anyone who's able to go through all my content. It still blows my mind. Like I'm like 1,500 subscribers now. A lot of the early months I was doing like 60 a month, 60 new subs a month, a couple a day. Like getting 5 in a day was great. And lately I'm doing more like low mid hundreds. But it still blows my mind. It's like there's a lot of times 1,000 people who watch my stuff, listen to my like that's how many people, not my high school, not my grade, like K through 12, the school I went to was 1,000 people. K through 12. I graduated with 89 people. So like to think that my entire school, K through 12, that amount of people watch some of my videos in like 1 week. It blows my mind. But yeah, I do some amount of bloopers are in a lot of my videos. There's times where I record a video and it's like, sometimes I do notes, but most times I don't. I just go for it. Oh, I wish I touched on that. I just add it into the next video, whether or not it's even like relevant to that video's topic.
Yeah, those are the reasons for the refilms when I have to keep doing it, is because I don't really have notes either. And as I'm talking, I think of another subject and I'm like, well, I needed to throw that in. So I have to, and then you get frustrated because you can't, kind of get your whole rhythm back. And it it becomes a mess. And another thing was what you said, I was trying to pre-record and just like you said, it like became outdated like by 3 days. And I couldn't even post it because it was already too old to really talk about. And that's another problem with how fast everything moves now is it's almost, unless you're doing like a generic, you know, kind of just story time or talk about, you know, a subject. I mean, if you're talking about anything about the market, it could change in 3 days.
That's one thing I kind of like about the idea of doing, like going back into my archives, talking about something that I did years ago. No matter Logan Paul comes out, whatever he buys, whatever new set drops, it's not relevant to my archive information. So like, I'm excited to get into some of that content because it's more, I've heard the term used, not even just in the Pokemon space, but like evergreen. It's more like I can record it. It'll be as relevant in 6 months as it is today because it's about something 5 years ago anyways. So like, what's the difference?
No, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, I mean, YouTube's a funny thing. I mean, it's fun trying to figure it out and post the videos and stuff. And like you said, I use that same exact analogy when with my wife. It's just like, imagine yourself, you know, like on a podium or on a stage talking to 1,000 or 2,000 people, and it just blows your mind away. It's like, wow, it's kind of like what you're doing on your videos, and it blows your mind, you know.
Was your live with Jake your first live?
That was my first live. I mean, that
that's
was
a different experience altogether too.
and
like,
I was so unprepared. I talked about it in a video, but I mean, I was up at 5 that day. I was at the gym by 6. I got home.
He called you like
Yeah,
last
I got home. I
right?
had time to like eat and shower. I was gone from 8 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. I literally walked in the door, turned the computer on, and he was starting.
Yeah.
And so, you know, like halfway through, I was just fading quick. Yeah, I was up for like 19 hours at that point. I'm just like, oh man, I probably look like an idiot on this. You know?
Yeah, Jake is really like I've been on a few lives with Jake over the year, and I just checked my YouTube quick. He's not live right now, but it wouldn't have surprised me if he was.
Just random.
He'll just do like a random one, and he'll just go for like 4 hours, and I'm like, oh great, my YouTube backlog just grew another 4 hours.
So what's the deal with Jake? Is he full time or is he still okay?
No,
He's still doing social work.
yeah, he does like therapy or whatever. He talks about that openly on his channel. I think for a while he didn't really talk too much about what he did for his day job, but as time went on, he's open about that.
Yeah, I didn't know once like Patreon and everything got so big if you guys were doing that full time and everything now.
I've still yet to meet Jake in real life, which is great. Like there's so many people that I'm so close to, again, through E4, through YouTube, through wherever. A lot of them I've been able to meet in person, but there's still so many that like I look forward to meeting. Jake and I are both intending to go to Charlotte Collecticon in June. So hopefully nothing comes up. Life can always happen, but hopefully I make it down there and get to meet him finally, along with a lot of other people too.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I think we've been going for 2.5 hours now. I think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Really, I really appreciate you coming on, and I mean, it's really nice talking about all this stuff. I opened my eyes up to a lot of things that I didn't know, so appreciate that.
Yeah, I always enjoy these chats. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate you reaching out, and always cool to meet new people, get different perspectives, and hear different stories. Just as I said earlier, greatest part of the hobby is just talking to other people passionate about it, and meeting people at events in person is like the ultimate level of that. But even this is great too.
Well, anyone who's crazy enough to still be watching, KetchumAllCollectibles, Dan's channel and Instagram will be in the description. Do you want me to leave anything else in the description?
No, that'll be good. Get ready for your worst retention rate. I'm not one who watches analytics too much, but get ready for your worst retention rate video ever.
It was worth it. It was worth it. Appreciate it, man. We'll do it again soon.
Yep. Thanks.
All right. See ya.